Konami used to be really great. The Suikoden franchise is my favorite video game franchise of all time. Each game in the main series takes place in the same world, just a different country. This is an RPG series about war, and I'd like to talk about the first game while it's still available for purchase on PSN for the PS3, Vita, and PSP. There will be spoilers in this video, but I'll have a warning. So now, let's talk about Suikoden for the PlayStation 1. Suikoden was first released in Japan as Genso Suikoden on December 15, 1995, followed by a North American release a year later in December 1996. Suikoden was also released in Europe in April 1997. Suikoden is loosely based on the classic Chinese novel, The Water Margin. In this novel, 108 outlaws rebel against the government. The creator of Suikoden is Yoshitaka Moriyama. Moriyama referenced Suikoden when pitching Genso Suikoden. His higher-ups loved the idea of the game featuring 108 heroes. Now Moriyama didn't want to just copy the story of The Water Margin, and he didn't want the game to be purely based on an Eastern culture either. So in order to differentiate itself, as well as appeal more to a Western audience, Western fantasy elements were added. Music composition was handled by Miki Higashino. With the game world featuring a blend of Eastern and Western influences, Higashino knew that the game couldn't feature just one type of music. She was able to take advantage of the CD format to create an amazing and unique soundtrack. Suikoden was also released on the Sega Saturn in 1998. This port adds some extra content, such as a new opening and new story scenes. Even with the extra content, the Saturn port suffers from inferior graphics and lengthy load times. That new intro is pretty cool though. In Suikoden you play as Tyr McDuel. Well, actually you play as a nameless hero. The name Tyr comes from the manga. It'll just be easier for me to refer to him as Tyr. Tyr is the son of General Teo McDuel. Our tale begins with Tyr and Teo meeting with the Emperor of the Scarlet Moon Empire. Teo is being sent to the north to deal with the city-states of Joustin, and Tyr is beginning his military career for the Empire. From here, our heroes return home. Then we're introduced to Gremio, Cleo, and Pan. They're Tyr's protectors. Gremio's been taking care of Tyr since he was a child. Ted, who is also living in the McDuel estate, is Tyr's best friend. The group is sent on a couple of missions. It's in the second mission where you're accompanied by one of your superiors, Kanan. Our heroes end up fighting an enemy that's way too strong for them. Ted reveals to everyone that he's the keeper of the Soul Eater, one of the 27 true runes. When they return to the capital, Kanan takes Ted back to the palace with him. Lady Windy tries to take Ted's Soul Eater, but he's able to escape. Ted then transfers the Soul Eater to Tyr, and stays behind to let the group escape. They're able to escape the city, but from this point on, Tyr and company are fugitives. Tyr ends up becoming the leader of the Liberation Army. That's basically the setup to get this game started. Just like The Water Margin, Suikoden is a tragedy. The Soul Eater bends the fate of those close to the bearer. Even though Tyr is a silent protagonist, there are points in the story where he's having a tough time dealing with the loss of those close to him. It's not all grim and doom. The characters joke around, and even though there's 108 characters, the story takes time to focus on some growing friendships. The game does a great job of character development. Since all the other characters will be doing all the talking, you learn quite a bit about them. A cool thing about the world of Suikoden is that each game takes place in a different country. The games do reference each other, and some characters show up in sequels, prequels, and side stories. This is an RPG, so most of the action takes place in random battles. In Suikoden there are three types of party members: short, medium, and long range. Short-range fighters are your tanks, and they can only attack from the front row. Medium-range party members can attack from the front or back rows, but can only attack 2 rows in front of them, so if you put them in the back row, their attacks will only reach the enemy's front row. Lastly, long-range attackers. These characters can attack from any row, but usually have weaker attacks and lower hit points. For magic there are runes. Runes can be equipped to characters. Each rune has one type of magic, examples being a water rune for healing, and a fire rune for dealing fire damage. Instead of MP, each level spell has a number of times it can be cast. Resting refills your magic. Some runes have powerful melee attacks, with no number on how many times they can be used. Battles have a free will command. This works as an auto attack. Battles in Suikoden move fast. Taking a lower level character to a high level area makes them level up like crazy. And the Soul Eater rune is broken, so leveling up is pretty easy. There are also unite attacks. Some party members can team up to either attack one enemy or all enemies. With Suikoden being about war, it's only fitting that there are military battles. It's a paper rock scissors system. Charge beats bow, bow beats magic, magic beats charge. These can be pretty random, but I realize most of the battles start with charge. There are other options. Thieves and ninjas can tell you what the enemy's next attack will be. Ninjas have a 100% chance of success, while thieves have a chance of failure. There are just enough of these considering how short the game is, and they definitely try to cutify war, which, believe it or not, is kinda welcome. Things get pretty dark, but then this bright and colorful battle happens. One thing that kinda sucks about these battles is that there's a chance of one of your characters getting killed, and if they die, they're dead for good, and you have no chance of getting the best ending. There are also a few one-on-one duels. These are also on a paper rock scissors system. Attack beats defend, defend beats desperate attack, and desperate attack beats attack. You can predict what the enemy is going to do based off of what they say. These are mainly used for dramatic effect. This has definitely never been the prettiest game. I remember spring break 1997, I took this game to my friend's house. As soon as we started the game up, him and his brother busted out laughing. Personally, I've never minded how the game looked. Character portraits look great, and the sprites are bright and colorful. Battles have 3D terrain. I really like the 2.5D look. The camera zooms in and out. Overall, battles look great. The animations during duels and military battles look good too. I think the choice to make a 2D game instead of an ugly early 3D game was a great choice. Now, as I said earlier, there are 108 heroes. Most of these 108 stars of destiny join you throughout the story. Recruiting the other characters is optional. However, if you want the best ending, then getting everyone to join up is a must. None of these characters are too hard to get, but do require some patience. Some characters join you just by talking to them. Others want money or items. Then recruiting some require you to be a certain level or have so many characters in your army. And then there are some who will only join you if you bring certain recruits to meet them. And even then, you might have to level them up first. To recruit a few, you have to gamble and beat them at their own games. The minigames aren't anything great, but it's cool that they're there. The Liberation Army HQ is a castle. Recruiting more characters grows your base of operations. Recruiting shopkeepers adds shops to your HQ. And some characters add features to the castle, like a storeroom or an elevator. As you fill out the roster, the castle music changes. Getting all these 108 stars of destiny is a big part of the appeal of the series. Without recruiting everyone, you're really missing out on a lot of the content. Another thing is all these characters get a part in the ending. It's only a sentence or two, but it's a bonus that makes recruiting really rewarding. About halfway through the game you recruit Vicky. She can teleport you to any location you've already visited. Recruiting Hellion gives you access to the blinking mirror. This item warps you back to HQ right next to Vicky. Fast traveling wasn't a common feature in games at this time, and it was more than welcome because it makes recruiting so much easier. And just a helpful tip, if you play Suikoden, just leave the blinking mirror in Tyr's inventory. This brings me to something I really don't like about this game. The inventory system sucks. Each character can hold 9 items, and being able to hold 54 items might not seem so bad, but this also includes the items they have equipped, so you'll be constantly filling up on items and have to throw some away. You do get access to a storehouse though, so that helps. Another thing is that you get a lot of characters you can use in battle, but a lot of them are jabronis. This game will sometimes force you to use said jabronis. There are some points where a short-range fighter will join you right before a battle. They'll almost always be placed in the back row, rendering them completely useless. Unless it's Valeria, her rune is pretty OP. The soundtrack is one of the best things about Suikoden. A few of the tracks are used all throughout the series. The music always helps set up the more dramatic scenes. Now I'm going into spoiler territory. If you've never played Suikoden but want to, this is the best place to stop. Okay, so here come the spoilers. I'd like to just point out some of the bigger moments in the story. You spend a large part of the game with Gremio in your party. Every time you head out, he comes along. When trying to go after General Milik Oppenheimer, Gremio is killed. Oppenheimer trapped the group in a room with flesh-eating spores. Gremio sacrifices himself to save everyone. He spends his last moments telling Tyr how proud he is of him. Shortly after defeating Milik Oppenheimer, General Teo McDull attacks. Being on opposite sides of the war, Tyr is forced to kill his father, and the Soul Eater gets more powerful when these characters die. Matthew Silverberg is your military strategist. The Silverberg family are multiple games as allies and enemies. Near the end of the game, one of the higher-ranking members of your army betrays you. Matthew is caught in an explosion and fatally wounded as a result of this betrayal. He's able to do his part in the final siege, but dies right after the war is won. When you recruit all 108 Stars of Destiny, Gremio is brought back to life. If you get this ending and load it when playing Suikoden 2, you'll be able to see Gremio again. When watching the ending, there are endings for all the characters. A lot of them are in the next game as well. Suikoden is a great first attempt at a new IP with a new director on a new console. It's a little rough around the edges, but stays interesting because of the story. The game is so good I'm still a fan of the series today. Konami abandoned the IP a long time ago. The final release on the PSP in 2012. I really hope Konami brings these games to new consoles. Physical copies of the Suikoden games are pretty pricey. Well, that's Suikoden, and it's definitely from a time when Konami was great. Thank you for watching. Please like if you liked it, and please subscribe. Peace!